Moving on, since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot has changed over the course of the last year. With vaccines being given at breakneck speeds and infections beginning to gradually decline, since planting is in full swing again, we've decided to take a look back to the conversation we had with veterinary epidemiologist Vander Ley about how we were preparing for this fight in the fields this time last year. Moving forward in one of the busiest times of year for ag producers during the pandemic is anything but business as usual. This situation will inevitably require that agricultural professionals will now have to carefully consider exactly how COVID-19 could impact their operations on a daily basis and even into the future. One of the most important things we need to keep in mind is what we already know of how the disease is transmitted from host to host. The best way to do that is to stay informed on the ever-changing updates to guidelines set by health professionals.
CDC is really probably the primary place to go get information about how to protect yourself. There's a lot of state and local information that's becoming available. A lot of local health departments are putting in specific guidelines for areas, and it's important to check in with them to make sure that in the particular area you live in, that you're following the recommendations that are appropriate for the area. There's lots of variability in how this outbreak is affecting people. We can see that from watching the news. Thankfully, here in Nebraska, with some exceptions, there's some hot spots that are definitely really troublesome, but we're already spread out, and I think the health departments are putting recommendations in place that help us cope with the need to follow those social distancing and some of those hygiene things, but also takes into account that we live in a little more spread out area than, say, New York City.
It would also be advisable to place products that promote hygiene, such as hand sanitizer, disinfectant materials, such as wipes, and using disposable covers on porous surfaces, such as seats and other upholstered surfaces. Furthermore, it would be prudent to allow a 3-hour downtime in commonly shared areas in order for the virus to expire in confined spaces when possible. Above all, it's important to do your best at keeping high-touch areas as clean as humanly possible.
The reason it's important to clean those things is because the research that's out there right now is showing that the coronavirus that causes COVID-19 can survive on non-porous surfaces for quite a long time, and even some porous surfaces like cardboard. So it can survive on plastic for probably 3+ days is what the data is looking like right now. On wood and metal, maybe even a little bit longer than that. But in general, it survives quite well in the environment for a period of time. So the idea with cleaning high-touch surfaces is that if a particular individual is shedding, that we're going to shut that transmission to the next operator or user of that tool or piece of equipment or whatever down.
It's paramount that producers put a plan in place to keep distance between teams, family members, and hired personnel to help reduce the risk of transmission from person to person. This includes things like breaking up duties among employees, holding virtual meetings when possible, and most importantly, however, is the need to plan ahead in the event that the owner-operator or any employees fall ill. In this situation, it's highly advisable to put in place a chain of command, so to speak. Nebraska Extension's Tyler Williams explains how new crop and cow-calf operation plans offered by Nebraska Extension can be a useful tool to do just that.
Sometimes things change between when you make that plan and when it actually happens. So if you think like the first person you had planned might either one, be sick themselves, or two, might just have too much on their plate to take on any more land or any other responsibilities. And so that might go down to the next person in line that may have the time to do that, for whatever circumstances that might be thrown their way. So thinking about at least a couple options sort of kind of covers some of the scenarios that are always possible out there.
As planting season gears up and the workload increases for many in the agricultural industry, it could be very easy to overlook many of the steps we now must take in order to keep ourselves and our loved ones safe and healthy. So, as plans to do business continue to be made, just try to keep in mind the situation we currently face is anything but business as usual. Reporting for Market Journal, I'm Bill Dodd.